There we go.
Yeah, so man, it's just you don't understand until you're in it. Like I said last week, you don't know you're tired until you got a kid. And you think you're tired beforehand, and you're not, because sleep has not been great. Like I go to bed. I used to go to bed at 9:30, and then I would get up at 4:30, and now I'm going to bed at probably or going to sleep at maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock, because you're not working off your clock anymore. And then you're waking up, or I wake up probably 2 times a night. My wife is a warrior. She's getting up like almost every 2 hours, 2.5 hours, and yeah, she's struggling with sleep too. But then the big thing is like I get up, and instead of going back to bed, like there's a period between 3:30 and 5 o'clock, and so like I'm getting up between then, because if I go back to sleep, I'm not getting up at all. And so my wife she wakes me up, but man, the sleep, I wouldn't call it sleep deprivation, because it's not that I'm seeing things yet, but the importance of sleep, and then the importance of recovery and everything like that is super important. I don't know what happened to my video then, but I'm back.
I don't know. Seeing things. Either way, it are you still keeping the lifting schedule and being productive and getting everything in?
Yeah. Like I'm almost every day. I had a day off since Florence has been born. I've had 3 days off. So in 2.5 weeks, I've had 3 days off. So it's not like I'm not training, and I'm training relatively hard too. Like I'm actually putting in some yards with.
All right, we're back after the fall of the Australian technology.
Man, this thing is just like, you know what I mean? It's either, like I said, it's either that or I am that tired that I just have no idea what's going on. But that's bizarre. Anyway, speaking of tired, like the sleep when you become a parent, or if there's a massive change in your life, like fatherhood, parenthood, there's definitely some things that are struggling. Like one thing that I've noticed is that it's probably because of the amount of food that people are bringing over. Like I'm starting to put on a little bit more in terms of size. Like I'm usually I'm at 74, but now I'm at 78, and it's because, well, I'm definitely tired, so I'm not sleeping as much, which means I'm not recovering as much, which means I'm constantly eating because I just need to sustain myself to try and make it through the next couple of hours because I'm just knackered. But I'm training like crazy, like I'm probably training double the time that I was usually training. And I was training a little bit beforehand, but there's definitely something that's going on within regards to the sleep, like lack of sleep. And I mean, for you, you're someone who needs a lot of sleep from the things that we've spoken about in the past. And like, if this was to happen to someone who needs like this much sleep, like I can only imagine what might happen to you.
Yeah, I know. There was some interesting science on dads right after they have kids that there's some hormonal changes that you tend to hold on to a little bit more fat and a little bit more mass just
Mm,
to deal with the less sleep. But yeah,
mm,
I don't know, man. Like it's like when I was still playing, there were some guys that were just like could roll up out of off 3 hours and be dead tired, but still play like normal.
mm.
Maybe a little bit worse, but like, man, if I rolled up on like 5 hours instead of 5 or 6 hours instead of nine, like, man, I was not the same player. Like,
Yeah. The importance of sleep is just like, I think for younger bodies, it's more, it would be not that it's less important for older people, but I just think that now that you've experienced it, I'm saying from my perspective, now that I have experienced the other side of what it means to truly be tired, you kind of are just like, all right, well, we just need to get on with it, and it can't get any worse than this, can it? Like we can, but it's like you haven't got a choice almost. So yeah, for those who are going to become
mothers or fathers, parents, whatever, um, there is a like I think that's people talk about it a lot, but it never really hit me until like I'm actually in it, which I think is most of the time anyway.
Yeah, I think. Do you think there's something to be said for um getting used to being tired and being able to function better on it? And sort of in the same vein as like the cleaner you eat, the less you're able to handle like garbage foods.
Mm. Yeah, I think so. Like I think that's why, all things being said, for me, I do think that I've still transitioned quite well. Like we had football last night. It was an 8:15 game. So it was like by the time I got home, it was 11 o'clock at night and I was knackered. So I'm working at that time. I had a coffee at about 8:30 just to try and keep me going. And I mean, that's the other thing too. My coffee intake has just skyrocketed. Yeah, I'm having probably 3 or 4 double shots a day. Yeah, so I've had one this morning. There's a couple more to go just to help get me through. And I know that's not going to last for forever because it just gives me that little bit of a push, a little bit of an energy boost. Because if I keep doing that, I know it's not going to be beneficial for me at all. But one thing that I've noticed that has actually been good is the fact that I would get up super early beforehand. And although I would go to sleep relatively early, like 9:30 for most people is quite early, um, I'm still getting like I'm still not really sleeping that much. You know, probably depends. 7-ish hours, 6-7 hours. Whereas now it's like I'm probably sleeping 4 to 6 hours because of the intervals. It's literally like a high intensity interval training because you go to sleep and then you wake up and then you go to sleep again and then you wake up and then you go to sleep and you wake up. I mean, again, it's not as bad as what my wife is doing, but yeah, it's I think that there can be a lot learned from like you said, learning how to function when you're actually tired. Although it might not, it, I wouldn't say it's recommended that you just wake up, you have 3 hours sleep for the week, and just wake up and try and see how you function. Like, nah, that's not what it's about. But it's good to sort of challenge yourself. I mean, usually getting to that later time of nighttime, I would my eyes would be like I'd be struggling to stay awake. I'd be squinting and like my eyes would be hurting. But now it's like, well, all right.
Yeah, I don't I wouldn't recommend the lack of sleep training. I think it'll close the gap between well rested and sleep deprived, but like not just by raising the bar of sleep deprived performance, but probably also by lowering the bar of full
Mm,
slept performance. You'll probably like you'll probably go from here and like what you'd like to do is just go like that, but you'll probably end up like
mm, mm.
pushing it like
Yeah,
that,
definitely,
which
definitely.
and I've noticed that with foods as well recently, or
Mm,
not in the last couple of years. Like I respond really poorly to bad foods, like real sugary cookies, ice cream, uh, different kind of like really fat fried foods, like all of that. Like I respond really poorly to that. Like I have a hard time the next day because of food like that. But like, I mean, other people just sail through it like it's nothing. I think it's
mm,
probably because like I just don't eat foods like that at all. So then it gets into my body. It's like, what the hell is this? Like, what are you doing here?
mm,
And then like maybe I've become like sensitized to it or whatever instead of becoming desensitized. And it just like I know there's a cookie sort of place in America now called Crumble. That's sort of like do you have Crumble in Australia?
No, we haven't, but that sounds epic.
It's like I mean these cookies are like this big and they like have weekly flavors that they change, but they're like man, they're like sugar monsters. And
Mm,
I know like if I eat half of one of those cookies, I'm gonna be like 40% less productive the next day.
mm,
And it's and if I eat a bowl of ice cream, like I'm gonna have a hard time the next day. It's
yeah.
maybe that's just me being a puss, but like
Maybe. No, I think that there's something with that too. Like when I was younger, back in primary school. Well, back to when I was a kid, like I used to get quite bad eczema on my skin. My mum tried, well, my parents tried lots of things. Couldn't drink cow's milk, couldn't drink goat's milk, couldn't do anything like that. And so they fed me soy milk. I'm surprised I haven't really, like, I've still got a deep voice and I haven't got breasts or anything like that. um, but yeah, so I was on soy milk for years and years and years. And since probably midway through last year, when I started doing a lot more of carnivore and I started eating a little bit more meat, I went back to starting having more dairy. Like I couldn't, I was the same as you, so I couldn't eat ice cream. I knew that if I had ice cream or if I had, Greek yogurt or something that was even milk now too. Like if I was to have anything like that, you would not want to be around me because I'd just be like be sniffly. My stomach would hurt. Like it was just horrible. Even my skin to a certain extent. And did carnivore and then started getting like this urge to want to have more dairy products. So like just not ice cream. Like didn't want to have that. I think because of the sugar, the processed sugar and that in it. But like the Greek yogurt, the dairy, the butter, the milk, the butter, that sort of stuff. And I started having it. I'm like, I'm not feeling as congested. I'm not feeling congested at all, actually, as what I was feeling previously. And nothing was coming up on my skin. Like it would get that bad where I would have some ice cream. And I remember like on my elbow pits, I would have like this kind of circly rashes that would be coming up and then I'd get itchy elsewhere. And it was pretty bad. It was like, it was really, really agitated and it got really, really inflamed. But yeah, it hasn't happened in definitely in the last year. And even the congestion, like considering the amount, like I said before, considering the amount of like chocolate that people were bringing, because they're like, oh, it was Easter and we've got chocolate left over, and oh, you had a baby, here you go, congratulations. And so I'm like, okay, give me another bunny, like, and because I'm so sleep deprived too, it's like there's some poor choices which I'm understanding of, and that's also probably why I am putting on a little bit more weight too, because I'm training, like I said, training a lot more, but then I'm eating a lot more too. Like I'm eating like crazy and at all times as well. Like apart from the morning, like I don't eat in the morning when I get up. The first thing that I have is a coffee. And for a while, so probably until maybe 10:30 today, I won't, which is in another couple of hours, I won't eat. But it's like, because I am so tired, you see that there's something there. It's chocolate. It's like, that's gonna sustain me for 30 seconds, but it's gonna give me like that little hit that I need. But yeah, in regards to the processed food, I've definitely noticed that like my tolerance of it has risen big time, and then dairy. Like it's not just processed foods, but then dairy. I think one thing that kills me is like your breads, like that, the gluten, and then all the other crap that they put in it with the seed oils and whatnot. Like that really, really does me bad.
Yeah. I don't know. I haven't really eaten like a pasta or pizza in recent memory enough to like think about like, oh yeah, that just ruined, like I just haven't, like, I mean, and I eat so much rice that it's like rice is just nothing for me at this point. But I do remember like there was a period of time, and I don't know why I haven't gotten back to it, but there was a period of time where I was just eating like I think it was like a pound and a third of ground beef and like a whole avocado for lunch and nothing else. And that was like my first meal of the day. So it was like 12 or 1 o'clock, this massive thing of ground beef and an avocado. And I remember just like after that being like a robot, like so like laser focused, like had way more energy than like when I sat down to eat. And I don't know, maybe rice does kind of slow me down a little bit. Maybe it's just the carbs, maybe it's, I don't know. Cause I don't fluctuate very much, but things change all the time with what I eat. Like sometimes it's ground beef and rice, sometimes it's like ground beef and avocado, ground beef and ketchup, ground beef and cheese, like ground beef and bell peppers, like things like that change. But that's the one that I specifically remember, like, man, I felt like Superman for the next 2 hours after I ate that, which by any normal amount of reasoning, you would think like, oh, you probably would have kept eating that, right? And I didn't, but I don't know. I don't know if that's, I don't have any good sort of reasoning behind it. I mean, it could be that it's light. It could be that the carbs are, maybe it is the Charles Pollock when you got to eat carbs at night, no carbs in the morning, fat in the morning, carbs at night. I don't know. It's
Yeah. When I
diets, yeah, frustrating.
Yeah, it is, man. It is like because I think it can be real monotonous too. Like it's the same thing over and over again. Which one of my old business partners who we stayed close. He's like he's done nutrition and diets and all that kind of stuff. And he was saying it doesn't always have to be an orgasm in your mouth. Like you don't always have to have something that's like wow, because and that's what we're like as humans. We want something that tastes nice. I remember when I did the for 12 days, I think it was, did the FAT challenge, which was the fast athletic transformation, and it was lean meat and some eggs pretty much for a majority of, so more so your carnivore style stuff. I think it was a little bit of veggies here and there if you wanted to. But I went hard for 2 weeks. And I remember like I was sitting at 75.5. I was bloated and just not happy with myself at all. Just followed it for 2 weeks and dropped down to 72.5. Like, and it was just, I was shredded big time. Like there were abs down there and I had never seen abs before, which was just like, oh. And then you think about it, you look good and you feel good, but you don't continue it. Why don't you continue it? What's the reason? It's because there's all these other things that are like, oh, I want to have that because I haven't had that in a while. And I'll just have a little bit of it. Like, it's not like it's going to kill me. And then a little bit, it turns into a lot. And then you just go away from what you were doing. So I think that it's important to be able to get back into the swing of things again. Like for me, especially, making better choices, although making better choices when you're ridiculously tired and have had a lot less sleep than what you usually do, it is challenging. Like it's hard, but that's all part of it. Like, I just gotta callous my mind.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with eating the same thing every day. Like I eat the same thing almost every day. Um, the hardest thing I have is like hardest thing I have at top. You would have thought I was the one that was sleep deprived. The thing I have the hardest time with is like when I am tired, is like wanting to make the food. Like right after a workout, it's like I have no desire to make food. So I mean, the biggest thing for me, like if I have the food, like yeah, no problem, I'll eat it. Don't care what it is. Um, could be the same thing every day, and I'll eat it. But it's just like I don't want to make the food every day, but I also like meal prepping is something that you have to like set aside a significant amount of time for, and I haven't done that either. So it's I don't know. The diet is a weird one. Um, I mean, there's basic principles to follow. The other thing, I don't. Maybe this is just me, but I had a terrible time when I was doing just lean meat and eggs. Like it wasn't. I the lack of fat or carbs or some energy source along those lines just didn't work for me. Like I felt like the Grinch for like a week like that. It was not.
I reckon that's what may have happened to me after 2 weeks. Like because then maybe that's why I started to change it. That's only speculation, so I don't actually know, but I can understand that. And like I probably next time, which I would like to do it again really, really soon because like I'm not, although it might be part of what's going on with all the hormones and that, me putting on weight because I'm not sleeping and because I need to. That Hubman said that, I think, where it's like
Yeah.
the husband or the man puts on weight because of the sleepless nights ahead. So it's like, oh, cool. Well, there's an excuse for me to put on weight. But it's like, no, it's not an excuse. Like, I don't want to. Who wants to put on weight just because? Like, nah. So I'm gonna give it another crack in probably a week or so, just to get back into some routine, some because I think that's one thing especially with newborns. That's something that they love, is having that routine. And I am very blessed to have, my wife who's just like, bah. She's got like, okay, we're doing this now. You got to read the book. You got to go and give a massage. You got to like put stuff on the skin, blah, blah, blah. So it's like, it's all set out for me. And I just go and do it. I'm like, yes, boss. We'll do it. Okay, let's go, And it's nice to have that routine. So at least there is some sort of routine there, even though at nighttime it is hard. Like she wakes up every 2.5 hours, sometimes every hour and a half to feed. It's like at least there is a routine there. So I think for me, it's like it's important to get back into the swing of things with that routine. And I don't think it's supposed to be easy. It's not supposed to be easy. Your life has changed for the rest of your life now. You have a child. It's always changed. Everything about it has changed.
Very, very much. It's yeah, I think a routine is, with eating, it's really helpful. It's also something that it's like if you get locked into a routine and then it breaks, you have to be able to like not just totally fly off the rails. Like you're like, all right, I'm gonna eat it 8, 11, 4, and 7, and then you miss like your 11 o'clock meal. You're like, all right, cake time it is, or something like it.
Oh, that chocolate looks good. Yeah.
Yeah, or like it's like, oh, I missed my 11. It's like I might as well just go get Chipotle now, double up the calories or something. It's it's a hard one. It and having things move around during the day, eating is something that I've never zeroed in on, and it's just mainly been sort of like whatever I'm doing right now. And the other thing, I think part of the reason I might have had a hard time with carnivore was I think I actually don't do well with eggs.
Yeah.
I think eggs and me don't have like a pretty big disagreement now that I think about it. Even like really well, like my grandpa has a farm that it's like free range chickens on his organic farm that just hang out outside all day and lay eggs. Even those, it's like it's not, doesn't do well with me. So maybe I need to try carnivore again without eggs, but then it would be like, I feel like it would be tremendously difficult.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't think it's supposed to be easy, but it could also be to do with your like your ancestral kind of line. Like for me, a majority of my heritage comes from like Italy, and like that part of Europe, which I wouldn't say that we just had meat. I mean, I'm sure that there would have been some fish and that sort of stuff too. So it's so hard to actually know what to like what's actually going to be most beneficial for you, what's going to be the best for you, because it is a lot of like trial and error, and you might try it for 2 weeks and it's like 2 weeks it's great, and then like the last day you have it again, you're like, oh far out, I feel like crap. I don't feel good. Like something happened. Okay, what did I keep everything the same? Did something change? And it's really, really challenging to keep that consistent. And I think once you find something, you need to stick with it. And although like it is monotonous and it might not be, like I said before, an orgasm in your mouth, I think that it's still doing a massive amount for you. You just need to stay diligent. You need to stay consistent. One of my clients actually at the moment, it's just about accountability. Like, and you want to surround yourself within that environment too. I think as a coach, regardless of whether you're nutrition coach or ATG coach or strength or whatever, like it's all about that accountability. If you have people and you have that environment where you've got people that are constantly there helping you achieve a certain direction, because sometimes you're going to fall off the rails. So like as a coach, that's when you can start to create that environment, create that accountability for clients. But then as a coach, it's like you need that for yourself too, because you're not always going to have that. It's not about I'm not motivated today, because again, I don't think motivation exists. Like you can't just be, I'm not motivated enough today. No, what your end goal is not as important to you right now. Like, and sure, people need that. I think people need to have environments and speak with people and and even coaches need coaches. I truly believe that. Coaches need coaches because they're the ones that are going to help them get to the next level or help them stay accountable or create that environment. Like it's I think it's vital. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I truly think that it's really important.
Yeah, I mean, one of the earlier points, like it's hard to one of the things that's difficult about diet is that it's hard to separate it from everything else because it's like a
Mm,
really, I mean, the weight isn't super subjective, but like how you feel and everything else is like a really subjective measure. So that's a hard thing to separate. Like, do I feel like garbage today because I've been working out really hard for the last 12 days, or because I just had a kid, or because my diet sucks, or because I haven't been sleeping, or like XYZ, and you gotta be able to level set that with just on diet and just how the diet is working. Um, and then yeah, I mean the training, nutrition, whatever, having somebody keeping you on track, like that external accountability is like a huge thing. Like it's in training, it keeps the intensity up, and diet will keep you on. It'll competition breeds better results. It's something that I've been trying to figure out a way to create here because there's not I don't have other people that kind of push me the way. Like that's why I go down to Florida as much as I can to get into the ATG gym with people like Marcel and Ben and those guys to be like, all right, I'm in a pond of one right now and I'm the biggest fish in a pond of one. But it's like go find a bigger fish in somewhere else. So yeah, I mean it's just that's the same rule that Uncom was built on. It's like use other people for accountability and to network and build things like that. So it's things are a lot harder when it's just you.
mm, and I think that's half the battle too. Some people would like, oh, I don't need a coach. I don't want a coach. It's like, well, you might not need one or want one, but it is definitely going to be able to help you achieve what you want to achieve because you do need that accountability, whether you like it or not. You do need that accountability. Some people need that accountability, not everyone. Like for me, like I said, I just had a kid and I missed out 3 days in the 2.5 weeks that since Florence has been born. So for me, I'm feeling really, really, really accountable to myself. But then you kind of like I jump on the scales. I'm like, is something just not going right here? And I'm looking at myself, going, what the hell's going on? Like I'm training more, I'm working harder, yet I'm putting on more weight. It's like sure, there might be some physiological things that are happening, but it is it's like it's a bit of a kick in the nuts
Yeah.
for me.
And I mean it's it definitely can be done to stay lean. Like I mean Ben and Keegan have kids and those two are still shredded and jacked. So it's not like you have a kid and you instantly have this big old gut or something. It's like it's you can work through it. Like it's very like Keegan and Ben.
Oh,
They're actually at those two are teaching a seminar together today. Keegan and
oh,
Ben
okay.
in
We're at
California.
oh, epic.
I know too far away, but
Yeah, no
well,
kidding.
there's some people going down to the ATG gym in May, so we'll see Ben there. I don't know if we'll see Keegan, but
Yeah,
it'll be. I assume you won't be making the trip over the pond. It's probably not great timing for you.
definitely is not great timing for me. I'm hanging out for the day that they decide to make their way down under to do something with us for us. Um, I am excited for that day. So if Ben, if you listen to this, or whoever is in charge of doing the ATG camps or anything like that, because I know that there's a lot of people here. One of my clients who's like, so he went away to Thailand and he started seeing. I can't remember his so Movement Gems is his tag on Instagram. I can't remember his name though.
Oh man, I know it. It's
Yeah, I can't remember his name.
Andrew.
Yes, that's it, Andrew. So like he was in Thailand, and I was giving him things to do while he was away, and he was training. We do a lot of ATG stuff, and he had lots of time in his hands, and so he was just kind of going through like YouTube shorts and that sort of stuff, and he saw Movement Gems come up, sorry, and he was just like, "Whoa, what is he doing?" And it's like it's a lot of the ATG stuff that we've been doing, and I think for me, like I had kind of planted the seed in his head, but then Andrew kind of went along and watered it a little bit more for me, like him actually seeing it. And he's like, I want legs, like movement jumps. That's what I want. I look at his leg, like he's got
So does everybody, yeah.
he's, he's got some gorgeous legs. Like they are, he's put a lot of work into them. Um, anyway, and he came back and he was just like, straight away he was even more invested. He was invested beforehand, but then he's seen this external product and he's like, wow, like that's gnarly. That's great. And like you see a lot of the things that he's doing, and it's very similar to obviously a lot of what the ATG stuff is. He came back and like he's like, right, like you got yourself like a pair of barefoot shoes straight away. And then he's like, right, we're training because he does 4 times a week with me, and like we've been pushing and working him hard. And he was never one for legs. Like we do legs, but he'd tap out a little early. I'm like, well, no wonder why you got little chicken legs, you know. And we'd get into doing like we do a 10D10, for example, and we would ramp just for a little bit more volume and all that. And we would do that. And the next couple of days, he's just like, my legs are finished. Like, and they're sore for a while. But anyway, he's got this newfound appreciation for ATG training, and I know that there are a lot of people here as well that feel the same way. A lot of the athletes that I work with too, they're just like, and it's not that they want to come and do just ATG training. They enjoy the approach to the way that I do training with them, because it's not like let's go to the gym and just like lift weights. Like there's actual purpose behind it. And when you're getting results from kids as well, not kids, but to me they're kids, you know, 19, 20, 21-year-olds who they're getting like their girlfriend saying, well, your legs are looking a little bit more defined and a little bit bigger. And you're looking stronger, like on the field too, like, you know, holding players off. There's one of the boys, Austin, who's just been on fire, absolutely on fire. He comes 2 times a week, does a session with the group, and then he does one-on-one. And it's like we spoke about last week, where you kind of, you're topping them up as you go. You're not giving them this massive stimulus, which is more than likely going to be detrimental for them because you're pushing the needle too far, and it's almost like you're burning the candles from both ends because they're doing football and then they're doing extra training on top of that. It's like it's almost like you just kind of have to continually move them forward. But yeah, his athleticism, his strength as well has improved out of sight, out of mind, like crazy good. And then even a lot of the other boys too, just in terms of injury reduction, like I spoke about last week, injury reduction, but then just general strength too, like on the ball. Since doing like a whole lot more with rotator cuff, even a lot to do with like low back and hips and that sort of stuff, like their center of gravity and their strength is just exceptional. Like to be able to hold players up, it's not like we're not doing any football stuff 1-to-1. Like we're just approaching it in a way which is helping strengthen those areas so you feel strong in that position. So then when you put your arm up to shoot the ball, or when you're holding a player up as an attacker, or even as a defender, maybe being stronger on the ball and turning players when you're in defense, trying to turn out the defense and shoot the ball and whatnot. Like you're solid and strong, and you can visually see that with these players now, which is it's from my perspective, it's great that that's happening. It's great to see that what ATG is doing is actually creating these athletic beasts on and off the field, because they're feeling better too, which means they're playing better, which means we're getting better results and better performance.
Yeah. I think, how much benefit do you think having the individualized things has for players, or how much the benefit do you think you can get in like a group or like full team setting?
So the individualized, for me, I think you can be like, obviously because it's just the one person, you can approach it with more of a magnifying glass than what you can in the group. And when you approach it with more of a magnifying glass, it's not necessarily what you're looking at, it's what the player's saying to you. So when you've got someone who comes to you and says like, okay, there's A, B, and C that's happening at the moment, this is the way that I'm feeling, you can almost kind of like tweak it a little bit more. And so like for Austin, for example, he's had some pretty shitty injuries, I think, with his knee and his ankle, where he broke his shin. I'm pretty sure something like that. He broke a bone in his body, and he had like it was a pretty, and I think it was his foot as well. There's been some things that have gone on with him, but when you can see the way that they move in that one-to-one setting, and then you're able to actually top them up in the group setting as well, because it's like, okay, you can work a little bit more on this, have the focus in on this, or you can put something in which is going to be more beneficial for maybe a smaller group of people, but it's going to help even the other group of people too. But I think that, well, I know that with the one-to-one stuff, it's like you can really hone in, and also you actually, I'm a big believer in not just being physical. Like you can actually get them to open up a little bit more to you. You can actually develop a relationship better with with the players or with the one-to-one clients too, compared to the group setting. However, in the group setting, it's like you've got this external push or accountability too. And it's not just driven from you; it's driven from the other boys rocking up. It's driven from the way that they're doing their sessions. So it can sometimes, there's the positives and the negatives to both ends. But yeah, that's the way that I see it. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the pro guys I talk to have team sessions and then often don't do things on their own outside of it, and it's like if you're a professional player, like this is your whole thing. Like the team sessions are going to be like a shotgun approach, like hit the main things that people kind of need. Again, are they going to do it well? Are they going to do it not well? Like it depends on the club and the trainer, but like you're just going to hit the main things that everybody needs, and it's like, well, would you give everybody the same program? Like no shot. Like everybody has their very specific needs. Like, and when you have somebody that you can work with one-on-one like that, it's like you can have the sniper approach of like, all right, you need specific work here and here and here. You can still do the teamwork that'll hit the big blocks, but having somebody to work with, it's like, all right, we're gonna put a little bit of focus here and here and here, and just bring up those weak links to where they should be. Like, I think that's the difference between like, this kind of works and like feeling really good and having a ton of results from it. So that's what I was a little bit surprised when I've talked to people, and it's like they just do their team sessions and maybe they do a little bit of stuff on their own, like their own programming. But it's like I think the value for a coach, value of a coach for a professional player like that is like immense compared to what it would cost.
Yeah, and I think the benefits of having that definitely outweigh the risks. And when I say outweigh the risks, I mean like when you're training or when you're working with a coach, especially a coach who knows what they're doing. And I mean most coaches are one of the big things is do no harm. So like they are genuinely trying to help. It's not like there's coaches that are going in and just trying to make money, although there are coaches like that as well, which is unfortunate, but that's just the world that we live in. But the big thing is they're just trying to do no harm. And it's like like for me, for example, the way that things are going now, the way that things are trending, it's like this single car garage is not working for me for much longer, because there's a lot that's happening with the players wanting to come and finding benefits and actually enjoying the time spent with. That's the other thing too. When you're working with the group, you enjoy that kind of that closeness between each other. You start developing relationships with other players that you might not have really played with, or they might be in a different team, or you've got like under 18s training with seniors in this aspect, and then other times you've got under 15s or under 16s training with under 18s, like because you can really monitor. I think that's a good gap between 15 and 18. Usually under 18s and maybe 17 anyway. So between 15 and 17, 14 and 17, it's a good bracket to work with. And then your under 18s to your seniors, it's like the 18s are trying to make it to that senior level. That's where they want to get to. So it's like it's really cool to be able to actually visually see, okay, this is what so-and-so is doing being in that team. Like this is the work that they're putting in. Or same goes for like the younger kids, like, oh wow, I'm training with and under 18, that's where I want to go. That's what I want to be. That's my goal. That's where I want to progress to. And that's what I think is very powerful about that group setting. It's not just about the extra work that you're putting in. And sure, like you said, it's like a shotgun approach that you're working on. But there's actually a little bit more to it where you can kind of work it through a little bit more. But then again, with the one-to-one stuff, that there is where it's like, okay, here's some things that you can really work on, could be super beneficial for you. For example, Austin's ankle and knees were shot to pieces. Like you could see the lack of definition in his quads. Like it was just non-existent in his right quad. Like it was just it's like when I had my reconstruction, it was like jello. It was just there was nothing there. And it's like you give him this little thing to do. It's like, okay, do this many times to help prepare you, and that's going to help slowly in the future. And you're not changing too much. And you notice how much it actually makes a difference, because now he's actually got VMOs. Like you can actually see that there's like that little dimple on the top of his legs, or that little lump, sorry, on the top of his legs. It's like, well, there you go. So like what we're doing is actually making you stronger, because visually you look stronger and physically you feel stronger as well. You know, and people are saying the same things about you. It feels good. Like who doesn't want to be told that their legs are looking bigger, or they're looking stronger, or you know, they look like they've got a bit of size to them now. They're not just a little kind of stick figure.
Yeah, it's like it kind of feels nice when you like put on a pair of pants and you're like, oh, these are my
Unless you're in my
quads.
position right now.
That's true. The reason why behind that is important. But when you're like, oh, my quads are tight on my quads and my glutes, and you're like, oh, I have squatting a little bit more. And you're like, oh yeah, it is a good feeling, yeah. And I know there's some top clubs. There's some good clubs in Europe that are only in the gym once a week. And it just, I mean, obviously I haven't been in the setting with some of these clubs, but it's like I feel like there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of what clubs are doing. But part of it again, I mean some of the players I've talked to, it's like recovery, like they have a hard time with recovery, so maybe one time is right. When players that aren't playing, it's like, yeah, maybe they need 3 or 4 times. And depending on what you're dealing with, it's a hard thing. Like that's part of the thing that's hard with, again, the whole team session. It's like, all right, some people can handle 1 session a week, some people could handle 4 or 5 right now. And it's like, how do you accommodate all of that? 'Cause some people are going to get too much volume, and some people aren't going to get enough, and some people aren't going to get the right stimulus, and some people are going to get stimulus where they don't need it. So it's a problem that'll unlikely to ever be perfectly solved, but it is what it is.
Yeah. I think on that, we can finish on this note too. When you're doing your one-on-one stuff with clients, I remember the conversation we had with Zach a little while ago, where he was saying like some kids need to come in and just sleep, like not do anything. So this is when, like with the one-to-one, this is where you can get them understanding that like when it's time to rest, it's time to rest, but when it's time to work, it's time to work. But working one-on-one, you obviously want to be able to give them enough that you can actually get something out of them. And then when they take it into that group setting, it's like, okay, I know where I sit. It's not like you're going to a group setting and like, I need to be somewhere between here and here, but I don't know where that is in terms of maybe intensity, maybe in terms of load, maybe in terms of, I don't know, how much you're actually doing, the time you're spending on it. Like, do you need to spend a little bit more, a little bit less time? Who knows what that needs to be. But when you have kids or even younger athletes coming one-on-one, they gain an appreciation for what it is you're actually doing for them. And then they can actually take that too. So then when they're doing it away from you, it's like, okay, they know what they need to do. Like, and if they genuinely want to do it and they want to become a pro, well, these are some of the things that you really have to do.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good place to leave it here. I gotta run to a dinner. Where can everybody find you if they want to get there in season work with you?
I'm at Coach Carly. You can also, or you can either jump on, jump on Instagram and go to Coach Carly with the 3 eyes. But if you're in Adelaide or South Australia or anything like that, and you want to connect or catch up, even if you're in Australia, like I'd be more than happy to fly out somewhere once things have settled down a little bit. I'd really, if Ben's not going to bring an ATG camp here, I'd love to hook up with like-minded ATG individuals, or even just like Nevin here. We've been talking a little bit about it too, like just to be able to bring something here would be cool. And even if it is just in Australia, not just in South Australia. So if you're an ATG coach listening to this and you want to connect and catch up, for sure, like let's talk and we can definitely make something happen. How about yourself, Matty?
Yeah, there's been some non-sanctioned, I guess you could call them, ATG meetups in the States that have happened. So you could do it in Australia, but yeah, score performance wherever. Instagram's the best place. That's where I'm on the most. Yeah, if you want coaching, whatever, that's where reach out. and or any questions or whatever. I'm putting together a Q&A video soon. So if anybody's here and you got questions, throw me. I'm making a video, and it makes creating content easier for me when other people ask the questions and I don't have to think of them. So there we go. Good short one today with a little bit of technical difficulties. Appreciate everybody who made it this far, and we'll see you guys next week.
See you guys.